Welcome to Credit for Prior Learning at EKU. This is an informative session. This one will focus specifically on articulation agreements and academic agreements, MOAs. They're all lumped under academic agreements. I'll go ahead and get started. I am Cassie Bradley. I am the Credit for Prior Learning Coordinator for EKU. I've been here for about 25 years, and most of the time that I've been here at the university, I've been housed under academic affairs or some capacity under academic affairs. Um, just starting out, I'm sharing this screen here with you. This is a list of our current informational sessions. We may be adding more of those later on, but these are our current sessions. The other two that have already passed, the September 28th overview, as well as the casting the narrative, that actually is looking at how to shift from a deficit-based to an asset-based thinking when sharing information about credit for prior learning. If you want that information, I will be following up with an email, and that will have the recordings as well as the slides from those sessions. I'll do the same with this session. I will be sending out the link to the video on YouTube as well as the slides. Feel free to share that with your colleagues that couldn't come or may not know a whole lot about credit for prior learning. So today's session, as I mentioned, is going to be on academic agreements and articulation agreements. First of all, I just wanted to give a brief overview about what credit for prior learning is. Basically, we're seeing a lot of students that are coming in. They're bringing some educational experiences that have been obtained outside of the classroom. And a lot of those experiences are valuable, and we like to recognize those in the form of aligning that with academic credit where possible. We work a lot with the faculty to do that. So credit for prior learning is our way of assessing those prior learning experiences and how they can meet their degree requirements based on their experience. We do have academic regulations here at EKU, as well as SAC-COC approved policies in place for evaluating the training to make sure that we're not only benefiting the student, but that we're documenting compliance as far as the faculty review and to maintain our academic rigor and obligations to our creditors. Just a few points. I added some things. If you've been in this session before, you may see some new information on here. How our students benefit. This is just some research that I have pulled together from CALE, the Council on Adult and Experiential Learning. They have done some partnered up with some other areas and other entities to research adult learning and credit for prior learning and prior learning assessment. One of the ways that our students we have found have benefited, according to this study, the PLA boost, and it is also linked in the resources that I'll share after this session, is that we see accelerated degree completion. Obviously, by rewarding and recognizing those experiences that align with our curriculum, we are able to shave off, according to this study, around anywhere from 9 to 14 months off of a degree. And when you're talking about adult learners or post-traditional learners, a lot of those are working, they're raising families, they're excelling in their careers, and shaving off 9 to 14 months is a huge benefit to students. You can also imagine that there's some cost savings involved at EKU. Currently, we're not charging for that. However, in this study, they saved anywhere from $1,500 to $10,000, and of course, that's going to be based on the type of institution. The universities and institutions that were involved in this were private, 2-year. There were a vast array of different types of institutions, so that cost savings may be different. The recognition of the real world learning, obviously, that is going to validate their skills and knowledge that they've already mastered, and then students see that experience when students see that is valued at the university, it increases their motivation and persistence and confidence, which keeps them going, and it allows us to retain them longer. Um, th- and because of that improved engagement and persistence, that value of prior learning in their journeys, students are more likely to stay enrolled and remain committed to their degree program through graduation. It also allows for increased flexibility and access and choice. Um, Again, that's just going to continue to allow them to stay motivated, and it will eliminate the need for redundant coursework and relearning information that they've already had experience with, they're already doing out in the workforce. So that's going to allow them to focus more on their degree, their specific degree requirements, and their academic journey, as opposed to having to sit through and relearning information for the sake of earning that credit. If we can find a way to apply that knowledge to their academic programs, then they can stay focused on their path, their graduation path. Then enhanced career readiness. Obviously, the students that in our traditional classrooms, they're learning in the classrooms, and then we're trying to prepare them for the workforce. However, this population has already gained a lot of knowledge out in the workforce, and they're bringing that into our classroom. So it's just reinforcing the work that they're doing. It allows them to link to their prior experiences and learning outcomes, strengthen their portfolio, their professional portfolio, and their resume. And then I also think that it also brings another benefit, not only for the students seeking credit for prior learning, but they also a benefit for the students that are in the classrooms with, or in the online learning situation with those students that are bringing in workforce experience. It also enriches our classrooms. This is what we're seeing out in the workforce. This is what I've seen. So they're learning from each other, and I think that that's a benefit to students as well. Another way credit for prior learning benefits EKU is not only through the students, but for the institution. So one of the things that I mentioned on the previous slide is that it shaves off some time to degree completion. And not only that, it will save the student money. And so a lot of people are like, what? We're saving $10,000, or is that lost revenue? And because of the recognition and the value on their prior learning, and because they're more focused, we retain them longer. The study that we that I referenced to earlier, the PLA boost, there were approximately 72 institutions involved in that study, and which covered about 465,000 students. So it was a pretty significant study. And out of all of those, they saw the retention rate. I believe it was about the regular students, the traditional age students that came in with no prior learning, advanced, and they were retained through graduation at a rate of like 49%. I don't know that I have it documented on here, but it's linked in the slides that I'll show you, like 49%. Whereas those that came in without prior learning was like 24%. So it's a significant difference when we show that we can honor them and recognize their previous learning. So increased retention, we're going to retain them longer. Therefore, it's going to increase our money. Oh, it was one of the enrollment things. This is a new piece for you all that have been on this session before. There was a study done with the Strata Foundation and Kale that it's called Attracting Adult Learners with Credit for Prior Learning. It's linked there, and it's also linked in the information that I'll share with you. They did a study of like over 1,000 Americans, and they were aged 24 to 64. And a lot of those that said in that group that were likely or very likely to enroll in a 2-year or 4-year degree post-secondary education program in the next 6 months, roughly half of those had already applied. 84% of those indicated that credit for prior learning would definitely influence their choice in selecting a college And over half of those indicated that it would affect whether they re-enrolled at all. So that's definitely a predictor that we see, and we're going to try to capture those. And the things that we're doing around our university are definitely going to benefit enrollment and getting those students into our programs and growing our programs. So it's definitely helping the institution. The Because we're focusing on this, one of the things that I think has been instrumental in this several years ago, 10, 15 years ago, they tried to get credit for prior learning more in the forefront and really jump on board with this. But unfortunately, there were no dedicated resources. So it was tacked on to somebody who was interested in that. Or, as we know, we're always doing more with less at the university. And so it's if it's not part of your job or part of your requirements, a lot of times that's the first ball to drop. So by about a year and a half ago, I was pulled into this position. They created this position for a full-time credit for prior learning coordinator. At this point in time, I believe I'm the only one in the state. And there's only a select few that are solely dedicated as credit for prior learning for their positions nationwide. There are a few of them, but they're very few and far between. It's usually tacked on to somebody else's job. And we all know how that goes, right? So by creating this position, I've been able to try and get some strategic involvement, being more intentional about the programs where we have this, what groups are out there that they're primed for this, like graduate programs and some of those, especially over in credit, the College of Justice and Safety, some of those fire safety, OSHA, some of those who are highly certified and a high level of licensures, those are already assessed. So it's really easy to it makes sense to kind of the low hanging fruit to where we can map out those outcomes versus how those align with our course learning outcomes. And by doing that, we're able to unify the process. So one program prior to my involvement, there were entities and pockets of programs that were doing this, but they had different processes or procedures and things like that. And so we're trying to unify it across the university. And because we're able to do that, we are able to make things more efficient for not only the faculty, specifically this session. I think this session is one of the most important pieces in that, related to academic agreements. And because we're doing that, we're able to optimize resources and processes for faculty and staff, as well as students. So it makes it quicker. We're also being more compliant, and we're documenting what we need to do to make sure that we're maintaining that academic rigor. Stronger community partnerships, community and industry partnerships, like I mentioned earlier, with those areas that are heavily licensed and credentialed through the workforce, and our creation of pathways that allow those certifications to come into the university and be recognized as academic credit. That's strengthening that industry partnership. And it's going to build stronger ties with employers and industry partners as well as the community. It will also support faculty and staff in advising, corporate partnerships, and program development, and create more opportunities for collaboration and innovation. So at EKU, we have our corporate educational partners, and as soon as we get agreements in place, we're able to touch base with them. So the industries, they're able to pay less money for their folks to come back and earn a degree or finish that credential at a lower cost as well. So that's just building on that community and industry partnership, and specifically through these academic agreements, that's possible. Alignment with institutional mission and goals. Obviously, EKU has always been known as a school of opportunity, meeting students where they're at. And credit for prior learning helps with that, helps maintain that identity through our promoting access, affordability, and student-centered learning. It also contributes to our university goal of lifelong learner attainment, learning attainment, and workforce readiness. Well, here we go. And so once again, just touching on a little bit from the previous slide, the workforce is going to be benefiting from this because their employers are going to have faster, more efficient upskilling and reskilling. So many times I've talked to students that are out in the workforce, and they're like, uh, I'm wanting to come back because I have some college, but I can't be promoted until I get either an associate's degree or I finish my bachelor's degree. And so the employers that are willing to invest in these employees, they're going to be able to do that at a quicker rate when we recognize that credit for prior learning. And it's also going to help organizations to fill skill gaps and do that more cost effectively. The stronger alignment between education and industry needs, that's going to be able to recognize those workforce relevant credentials, especially through these agreements, certifications, and pair that with the experience as well as the rigor of a college and academic degree. The cost savings we talked briefly about, improved talent retention and career advancement. Again, obviously, they're going to be able to maintain and retain that talent because instead of, those employees are going to be more motivated when they're able to be recognized for the knowledge that they already have in order to move forward towards that degree completion. They're going to be more motivated as well. So those are the benefits. The different types, just to give you an idea of where this specific section fits into the credit for prior learning umbrella. The credit for prior learning is an umbrella term. So you have this large umbrella called credit for prior learning, and basically there's all these different ways that we can assess prior learning, and these are the various methods that EKU has available to our students. Portfolio assessment. Some of you all may be aware of the traditional portfolio to where it's just for experiential learning. And I don't mean that in a negative way. It focuses solely on experiential learning. They may not have credentials or licensures or anything like that, but they've worked at a place for a long time. And with that comes a broad array of knowledge. And so through that portfolio assessment, they're able to align their knowledge with a course student learning outcomes. We also have another portfolio assessment type, and that's through industry and workforce credentials. So those are like those firefighters that are out there that have these licensures or credentials in firefighting or fire investigations. We also have one for real estate or insurance. So those that are already licensed insurance agents. There's a course here at EKU that prepares them for the state exam. They don't need to sit through that. They're already licensed. So those types of things are a little bit quicker. So those are the low-hanging fruit as far as portfolio assessments are looking at those types of ways that are licensed. A little quicker process. Military and training experience also falls under credit for prior learning because it has not taken place inside of a college classroom or through an institution of higher learning. Workforce experience and training, obviously, we're going to look at that through those portfolio assessments, through agreements, things like that. Industry certifications and licensures, non-collegiate courses and trainings. Those are going to be a lot of those non-collegiate credit courses. Those are like Sophia, Straighter Line. We're looking at ways that we can identify ways to do that more effectively while maintaining our academic rigor. Internships and apprenticeships, our newly developed policy, and I'll touch base on that in just a second, on that houses credit for prior learning, identifies internships, apprenticeships, co-ops, things like that, where students can provide information on their experiences. And standardized and departmental exams. Those are CLEP, AP, departmental exams that are specifically, sometimes they're called challenge exams, specific to majors or certain courses. So what is collegiate level credit? Collegiate level credit is are those knowledges and skills and competencies that are expected in a college course. And some other characteristics of a collegiate level course, you're going to have the depth and complexity, the depth, breadth, um, the mastery of core competencies, evidence-based and documented. These are transferable across contexts. So those types of things are what we're looking at in college courses. As you all, many of you know, you have to do evaluations. We have STAR reporting, and these are ways that we're documenting that our faculty, our students are gaining what they need to out of these courses, and that's all out of those learning outcomes and competencies based on the discipline. Now, what that looks like may differ within the disciplines. And what collegiate level looks like in nursing may look very different in history. And so the way that we make sure that collegiate level learning has been obtained by a lot of these students is through the faculty. So faculty have to be the experts who evaluate this collegiate level learning or evaluate for collegiate level learning, and when it's appropriate to be applied as credit for prior learning. We have several policies that outline and complement each other. One of them is university policy 1.5.4 on the academic curriculum. That also says that faculty must be the determining body that identifies that. We'll talk again about the one that guides credit for prior learning. That's going to be academic reg on academic credit 4.2.1. And then CPL also assists in processing and documenting faculty vetted award, again, following those SAC COC compliance things. Again, academic regulation 4.2.1. There are three main headers in this regulation. The one that's on the website now is not the most current. It just now went through, some of you all may remember, it went through a 10-day comment period. We went through and cleaned up some things. And one of the newest pieces of that is that we established a whole section related to credit for prior learning. And I think this speaks volumes as to EKU's dedication to credit for prior learning, is that it lives in a small p policy, but an academic regulation that guides our processes. So that was huge for me, and helping to get that section in our academic credit regulation. So the areas in this regulation outline the amount and level of academic credit. So it's looking at hours for number credits, the number of contact hours or online hours, and there's several different subheadings under there. Credit for non-EKU transcripts. So that's going to be your transfer courses, your gen ed courses from other universities, previously unevaluated courses, military credit, and all the rest of those umbrella credit for prior learning modalities are going to be under credit for prior learning. And again, look for this on the policy website. The newest as of yesterday, I checked. It's still going through, all those checks and balances of being placed on the website. If you want a copy of the draft, I'm happy to share that with you. But eventually, the new section or the new version of this will include that credit for prior learning information. It will outline all of the requirements, the residency requirements, the amount that they can have transferred in, all those things. So for non-academic credit, EKU accepts the credit. Again, the policy outlines that, but also our residency requirement. We follow exactly. Some universities around the nation do different numbers for credit for prior learning, but just to make it easier, we follow the residency requirement. So for undergraduate students, they may apply up to 75% of their non-EKU credit onto their EKU transcript. And then for graduate level, they can transfer in 1/3 of non-EKU credit. So that includes everything. Transfer any non-EKU courses earned here can apply towards that. And so one of the things that we really look at is making sure that advisors, when they talk to their students that are seeking these opportunities, is that they utilize those credit for prior learning opportunities to meet um, graduation requirements and degree completion requirements, because we don't want it just sitting unless they're pursuing another degree or adding a minor or something in that area. We don't want it just sitting in free electives. We want it to be beneficial to the student, because it also takes staff and faculty resources to get these things through the process. Again, unless they just need hours, it very well could benefit them that they need hours. And so that could be the case. Again, just reiterating, accepted credits can be applied to the degree requirements following review by the appropriate academic department. So a lot of these things that are coming in, like military credit, some transfer credit, if credit for prior learning has happened at another institution and is on the student's transcript, it can be applied here. Now, where that lives on the transcript, unless it's coming through an academic agreement, it's probably going to be in electives unless it's been specified as general education or something else. At that point, the department can reach out and through the petitions process say, hey, can we move this to the major requirements? Can we sub this course out for that? And then, but usually through these academic agreements, we can make sure that those courses, especially if they're major courses, are applied where they need to in the degree program. And we do that through the agreement process and making sure that the articulation and transfer team are included in that. Does anyone have any questions so far about the basic information that's been covered? No? Okay. So credit by memorandum of understanding, academic agreements, articulation agreements, they're all the same, in the same pot of modalities of how we make things easier on our faculty, staff, and students. So these are a way to evaluate non-collegiate or collegiate credit in the context of EKU course equivalencies. So when we talk about non-collegiate, we're talking about an institution or organization that's not directly affiliated with a Title IV post-secondary, a Title IV granting post-secondary institution or an institution of higher education. So you may see out there that the OSHA folks have granted this. That's a non-collegiate entity. However, there may be ties to the OSHA program here or the occupational science majors, and we can look at linking those alignments. The articulation agreement, as I said before, the faculty have to be the guardians of that academic credit. So if we don't have an agreement in place, then the faculty have to review that each and every time that a student is presented. And I can tell you right now, the academic agreements have saved a huge amount of time over in justice and safety, specifically the fire safety program, because they come in and they have this credential and they may have the same course, and those outcomes of this non-collegiate training have matched up well, and the faculty experts have reviewed that and they say, yes, they can get credit if they have this certification. They will always be able to get credit for this course. So rather than having the faculty review that request every single time that a student, and a lot of these fire safety students come in with those types of credentials, we develop an academic agreement. And the academic agreement will line all that out. And the faculty are heavily involved in that. The chair is involved in that, the dean, and they outline not only this training or certification or licensure is they have met those requirements for the learning outcomes for this EKU academic course. They also provide what we call an appendix that will allow for what I like to call a crosswalk between that licensure or credential that they've gained out at a non-collegiate area, the workforce, through their professional training. to that EKU course. And so we link those up, and that covers us for SAC COC. If they come in, they can see that the faculty have evaluated it on the front end. And so then when these students come in and they say, oh, I have this certification, the advisors at that point just submit a form. As long as this academic agreement is in place, they just submit the form, which is called a credit for non-collegiate instruction form. And it goes through the approval processes. It goes through, and we'll go through that here in a little bit. It'll go through all the approval processes, and then it is directly applied to the student's transcript. So it shaves a huge amount of time on the staff and faculty part, as well as helps the student have that credit applied in a quicker manner to their degree. So the benefits of having agreement, just to reiterate, the clarity and consistency. Again, these academic agreements are going to clearly outline which type of prior learning experiences or credentials are going to translate directly into that course. This will also ensure efficiency for staff and faculty, which I touched on briefly. Students are going to know ahead of time how their prior learning is going to be recognized. So this is a way for us to recruit students. Since we have these academic agreements in place, we can we're working on having these housed on our website so that potential students that are coming in can look and see, oh, well, I have that credential, I have that certification, I could get credit for this once I enroll at the university. So that's going to help them determine which university they want to attend. And it's going to increase the student confidence and encourages engagement with CPL opportunities. Efficiency, again, we're looking at reducing the redundancy in coursework. So these students are going to stay more engaged. A lot of these, the purposes of the reasons we have these agreements are going to go back to those benefits to the university, to the students, to the workforce. So faculty and staff can process these faster since the faculty have reviewed on the front end. And unless something changes, those are reviewed. Those academic agreements are those are in place for 3 years, and then we reevaluate those to make sure that those standards are still good. Unless something happens before then, and then at that point, the faculty reach out and say, hey, we need to tweak this. And we've done that before as well. Alignment with academic standards. Obviously, these agreements ensure that credits are meeting those program learning outcomes and academic rigor. This will also serve as documentation for compliance and reporting processes. And then faculty, it also documents that our faculty have maintained the oversight while standardizing this credit application. Strengthening the institutional and external partnerships. These are going to create agreements with industry partners, military programs, and other educational institutions in a clear pathway for students to earn credit. It just makes things so much easier if we have these mapped out ahead of time and everyone has agreed on them. So when we're talking about academic agreements, a lot of these are within EKU. So many of the agreements, and you'll get access to all of those when I send the resources out after this session, many of those agreements that are in place are between a department or a program and EKU. It's more like an articulation agreement. This is how we're articulating this transfer or this credential or licensure. So it's within ourselves, but we also have agreements that are not with EKU, with external groups. So like we have some with the Southeast South Central Educational Co-op. So for our graduate programs in education, they can complete some very rigorous continuing education courses there and then receive credit for that. They can receive that credit here at the university for their graduate level courses. And that's all lined out, very detailed in the agreement. We also are working with other educational institutions, higher ed, post-secondary institutions. We're working on agreement right now with BCTCS, so the Bluegrass Technical and Community Colleges, to map out how some of their associate degree programs could align well and a good pathway for Articulate, Lisa Cox over in the articulation and transfer team. She has been instrumental in that. Nalish over in engineering has been really big on that as well, in mapping out how those 2-year degrees, 2-year associate degrees, how we can make that work for someone who's seeking more than their associate degree, an easy pathway to EKU. So that's just going to enhance our enrollment if we make that pathway easy for them. And it's going to remove hurdles for students, obviously. And you can guess how that's going to happen, because rather than going through a portfolio review and having to wait for review, they meet with their advisor. The advisor puts through the form, and then the credit is applied. The onus is on the student as far as making sure that they have the documentation that's needed. They've already done the work, but they have to be the ones to provide that and initiate that. So just for an example, I don't know if you can see this or not. This is just an example of a management 320, an agreement that we have in place. So basically, someone, as outlined in this agreement, someone that has gone through the human resource management certification professional or senior certified professional, based on the outcomes, and that's a pretty common workforce, those that work in human relations and human resource management. A lot of folks will seek that credential, and they may have that through their workforce. And our faculty have evaluated that and said that they meet those requirements outlined in the student learning outcomes for Management 320. And so all of that is cross-mapped, and the documentation is there so that if a student comes in with an SHRM, then they are eligible to have this Management 320 course count on their curriculum. One of the things I'll show you here, this is a QR code to all of our current agreements that are in place. Right now, they're on the Google Drive. They're on a Google Drive. We're working to get those onto the website. So bear with us. Some of this stuff is slow moving. But when in the information that I send out, I'll also include right here at the bottom. I don't know if you can see that there is a link to all of the current agreements too. I've linked all of those in here. So they'll be available on the slide. Proposing a new agreement, we have a lot of different ways. There's a lot of different types of agreements. There's some that are pathways into the university. There's some that have had licensures. Some of them are, they have to have had maybe a certain training and a different licensure. So there's all kinds of creative ways to map out these processes. And we have a lot of faculty that are willing to share their experiences. A lot of creative ways to do this. I think faculty in general, they want to help students with this, and they want to get them on with the business of learning what they need to know instead of things that they've already learned. So if you're interested and you think that there might be a way in your program to incorporate some of these credit for prior learning opportunities, especially if it's related to something that's already been assessed by another entity, a workforce, or a test, or something like that, let us know. Let us know what that is. Reach out, and I can talk through you with it. I can reach out. I work really closely with Dr. Jennifer Weiss, who is our associate provost. She also is our SACS COC liaison, so she's very well versed in what SACS looks at when they come in to make sure that we're in compliance. And then I work a lot with the faculty, and I can reach out and ask them and pick their brains. We have a good cadre of faculty that are familiar with this, and different ways to identify how to document this. And then thinking about the course equivalent, one of the new things that we've been able to do is in the new revision of the academic reg for academic credit 4.2.1, we've extended the availability of how those classes can be applied. So it may be something specific like Management 320, but it also might be maybe you don't know where to house it, but you really think, I actually just had a conversation with someone in business a few days ago. this person had a lot of experience and they had some from some international credit, but it couldn't easily be translated into EKU credit. But she had a ton of credit and a ton of experience in accounting. And so they wanted to recognize that because it's going to help her. She needed the hours. And they were able to put that in either a co-op or some courses, some graduate degree programs will have experiential learning components. There's lots of ways that we can do this. But if you have an idea of the EKU course equivalent that already is in your program, or maybe you want to create a new course, we can look at that as well. And then we're going to look at mapping out the alignment of the EKU course content, which we call Appendix A. And I'm happy to help with that. The key piece in all of this is the student learning outcomes for the EKU course. If I have those, I can usually have a draft, and I try to do my best to help. I know a lot of faculty are overwhelmed. I had a faculty reach out the other day and say, I really need to get this agreement in. I'm reviewing all these licensures that are coming in. I was like, well, just send me the SLOs. And I can get a draft. I'm not the expert in fire safety or any other area of that matter, but I can map it out because I've done so many of these. And then that way, all they have to do is review it for and tweak it for those areas of expertise that need to be included. And then we'll prepare the document. We go through it. We work it back and forth how it needs to be done. We put it in a DocuSign. And then all of the folks sign it. So the folks that are involved in this, you very many times, if you have coordinators, the coordinators are involved in creating this process. And then as far as the agreement, the academic agreement, you're going to have the chair of the department where the course is housed. You're going to have the dean, the registrar, the associate provost. And if there's any kind of thing that relates to they'll get a discounted rate. Like some of our agreements are pretty specific as far as if they come here, then if they go into this pathway, then they're gonna get a reduced tuition on something. If any of that type of stuff is involved, then we usually pull in Dan Hendrickson or somebody from student engagement and the vice presidents over there to make sure that that's still acceptable. And then once that's in place, it's on the books for 3 years unless something changes. The way that credit is awarded after that agreement is in place, and this also goes for other forms of credit for prior learning. We're working to create a process in Slate so that this ties directly to the student, that we can gather data on the amount of processing credit for prior learning that we have. But I don't know if you can see this, but once you get the slides, you'll be able to see it. There also will be a link right down here under this QR code. It'll also be linked in the resources that you can look at that. So basically, you're going to have the student name. And because we have this MOA or this agreement in place, you're just going to name the agreement. And I also have a listing of those to where you can just copy paste. Then you do a little description. The example that I'm sharing on the screen, this credit is being requested as outlined in the articulation agreement between EKU and the Department of Criminal Justice Training for law enforcement basic, and then it lists the classes. And then we go down here and, we go down here and there's actually 5 courses for this specific agreement. So the way that the non-collegiate instruction form is right now, I need to revamp it. There's only 4 spots. And so they put the course in here. They put credit hours. These are the most important pieces. That's where we pull our data from. And then the chair signs it. The dean signs it. Then it goes to the student signs it first, then the chair, then the dean, then the registrar's office, and then it goes to articulation and transfer. Once all that's done, the original submitter, if it's not the faculty, the advisor will get a fully executed copy of that, and they can then let the student know that it's been applied to their transcript. So very quick, I've seen these done from start to finish, um, as far as the awarding of credit from start to finish in an afternoon, within a couple hours, especially if it's close to like the students needing this to graduate. So it can happen very quickly, as long as everyone signs it and notices that it's in their inbox. So for current students, again, I went through that a little bit. I used this slide through several different presentations. So once collegiate credit is determined that it can be awarded, that credit for non-collegiate instruction form is completed. Um, and then one of the things that I want to put on here about the differences between, and this is some of the departments I'm working with on this, is that a lot of folks are, and when you're thinking about your programs and people that are out there awarding credit, is thinking about waiving versus credit for prior learning. So many times, there, for instance, there's a degree program, a graduate degree program, the Masters of Public Health. They came to me and said that there's a lot of their students that were coming in and they have huge amounts of experience running health departments, just a lot of experience in public health. And so in their degree program, they have a course for experiential learning. And so what they'd been doing prior to credit for prior learning is they would say, okay, we're going to waive that course. That means that you're not going to take that course, and we're going to have you take a different course for the sake of hours. And so the student's whole experience was being overlooked. And it was an issue. Obviously, it's not anybody's fault. It's just they didn't know what to do. So we were able to create a program, a process for the students that take that course, that experiential learning course, they can still take that course. However, those that are coming in, instead of being penalized, like you've already got this experience, so you're going to have to take a different course that you probably don't need because you've already got this. We were able to recognize and honor and validate that the way that they do that. And so basically they do the same thing as the students that are in the course. There's some documentation that needs to be submitted, some verifications from the employer on the number of years that they've been there, the types of projects. So it's pretty extensive, very extensive. It's probably one of the most extensive ones, but it also met their accreditors' requirements. And we were able to honor the students' experience that had some collegiate level learning involved in it, instead of just waving it off. So when we're looking at things and when we're using the language in the credit for non-collegiate instruction form, we definitely want to say we want to acknowledge or recognize the credit instead of waiving a course, because we don't want to be in the practice of waiving courses, because if a course is required for a program, we want to show how they're meeting that. And if we're meeting that through credit for prior learning, we have these documents in place, we have these agreements in place. We've shown how they've articulated that alignment between their experience or credential and the academic course. So be careful about using the waiver things. I've also seen some folks putting credit for prior learning into the petitions. So if a student doesn't have to meet a requirement that's on their program because they already have the experience, let me know, because that's a prime opportunity for credit for prior learning. And it may even be something that we can get an agreement in place if there's a lot of students that are doing that. So credits being awarded for prospective students, just to give you an idea, we can't do as much at this point. Now we're working on some predictive credit prediction software. We're looking at trying to find the best fit for us. But basically, the students, especially through these academic agreements, these are so important because this is a way that we can share with prospective students, hey, these are the things that we have agreements in place. If you have any of these, you could get 3, 9. There's some areas, I think, with the Lexington Fayette Urban County Fire Department training, upwards of 20 to 30 hours. So those are really big carrots to dangle, and saying, hey, come to EKU because we have this available for you. And if we have those agreements, we can advertise for those. So for prospective students, We can never apply credit until they've actually been, enrolled. And yes, we do have the free application, but students that are out there shopping, and they are shopping, they want to know what they're going to get. Now, the benefit that EKU has is many other places they charge. Not only do they charge for a review, but they may charge per credit hour of how many are applied, to the transcript. And we don't do that. They've already learned. They may have already paid for the training that is allowing them to be recognized in their credit for prior learning. So this is the basic information. The request is made either through a CPL survey, and all this information will be linked in a resource guide that I'll send in my follow-up email. Maybe they've reached out to the credit for prior learning email through the website. Maybe I've had inquiries come at Kroger or at a football game. So there's lots of different ways that the initial inquiry is made or request, those formal requests. We do ask that they complete the survey. All of these potential students are housed, these surveys and emails and things. We document that in the application side of Slate because they're not current students. And by doing that, they're tagged as credit for prior learning, so that when they come, we're working out a way to where that information that they've provided before they were a student can be pulled up in Advising 360 or through Slate or something like that. So they don't have to go through the whole process of re-explaining, resharing. We can pull that information. So they are tagged. Then we make recommendations. So if there's agreements, if they have licensures, we say, hey, here's what we have. Other opportunities, we provide that information with them and recommend other areas or other things that they might be eligible for upon admission. So like portfolio review, some of those exams and things like that. Those are things that they can do after they've become a student. And then we always direct them to the free application for admission. Then I always document. I always ask everyone else, because I'm sure that out in the departments, there are students that are reaching out, especially with the enrollment counselors. And the enrollment counselors are wonderful about documenting this information in Slate, so that if I get a request, I can go in there and I can say, oh, okay, this person has worked with them. I'm going to reach out to them and see, if they can take it from here. So that's the general prospective student process. So it's very vague but the one place that we can apply some specificity is through these academic agreements. That's why I really love these agreements. It makes things simpler for our current faculty, staff, and students, but also those prospective students that are seeking these opportunities. And then just for information, this is the current student process, and all this will be in there. I went through all that. I won't go through it again. I did want to leave just a few seconds for any kind of thoughts, feedback, recommendations, questions. I'm glad that everybody is on here. Chris, thanks for joining. I just saw you on there. I've had the full screen, so I haven't been able to see who all's on here. Steve, Wayne, welcome back. Liz, always good to see you. Lauren, you're way familiar with this process. Lauren sees a lot of this stuff as it comes through. Josh, I think you've been on a couple sessions. And Steve, welcome. I don't know that I've seen you before here. So again, this session will be recorded. Hi, Steve.
Hi, how
What
you
area are
doing?
you in?
I'm in MIS. I just got hired, so this is my first semester.
Okay, great. Welcome aboard.
Thank you. I appreciate that. So part of my job is to expand the MIS program because it's a little bit small and it needs to, but we need to increase enrollment. And I've had prior experience working with Park University on MOUs.
Oh, great.
Because they had about 80% of their students from all the military bases around the country. And so, we had ongoing dialogue with that and so forth. But so, um, part of the MIS program is to also reach out to the adult learner, and that's our second phase. So your information today was extremely good because as we work with the adult learner, They've been working for a while. They already have experience. They already have knowledge, and so it's going to fit in pretty well. But again, thank you for the information.
Oh, anytime. Steve, I look forward to working with you. If you want to have a brainstorming session, I'm happy to do that in different ways that we can do that. I know that we've had a lot of requests. You're talking about information systems. Is that
That's me.
Yeah. I just wanted to make sure I was in the right program. But we've had a lot of computer science and information systems and folks out there that have multiple credentials. And we just don't, I think it's sometimes hard for the staff to just sit down and look at like, okay, what is the process? What can we do? And I'm happy to help with that process. I look forward to it and I'm really excited that you're here.
Oh, yeah, thank you. Well, me too, by the way.
Yeah. All right. Well, if anybody else has any other questions, again, I'll go through and get this uploaded onto YouTube. I'll share all the resources. And if you have any questions, you're always welcome to email me or give me a call. And I'm always happy to talk. And I look forward to seeing you at the next session. Thank you so much.
Thank you again. Have a good
You're
day.
you're welcome. Thanks, everybody.